My name's Dennis Stewart, commercial fisherman out of Cross Harbour, fish trap, and I also lobster traps. I'm the second generation, so I follow my father. Now I've got my sons working with me, so it's a very seasonal type fishery. Each trip might be a little bit different, but most of the time they're fairly similar for that period of time. Most of the time it's about an hour, hour and a half steam to the first trap, so you've got a bit of time, so you're leaving in the dark, start working just on daylight. Go through your gear, winch the traps on, empty the traps, rebait the traps, set the traps, fix the traps up if they need fixing up. This time of the year we're catching a lot of leather jackets, so it's a pretty heavy sort of labour intensive type time of the year where there's a lot more handling involved. Well, you're always looking over your shoulder for the whales. Basically you're just trying to hopefully keep your fingers crossed and do everything that we've been trying to do over the last 4 or 5 years with all the things that we're trying to do to mitigate the risk. And hopefully we get through the period and there's no damage to the whales and no damage to our gear. It's a hard process because there's so many whales out there now and they've been coming back more and more each year, so they're not afraid of us anymore. They used to stay away from us, but now they're so used to having contact with the boats, with the whale watching boats. They are so used to it, so they're not afraid of us. And that's why we're having more interactions with them, more issues with them. Because we set the traps and then you run the rope out and you put the headgear place, so you kind of run out in a big horseshoe shape. And then you're running the rope out, next thing you look behind the boat and here's a whale coming up. Where did he come from, We've done all the trials with the negative buoyant rope, neutral buoyant rope, keeping our headgears down to a minimum length, which is hard sometimes because we fish in all different conditions where sometimes the current could be running at 2 knots, 3 knots, and other times it's dead slack. And when it's dead slack, I think that's where our biggest issues arise. There's no tension on the ropes, and if the whales come anywhere near them, it gets hooked on them, and then basically from then on it just compounds into a bigger problem. It gets wrapped around their fins, they tow it, they get it around their tail, they break it off. It's systems that basically keep the rope out of the water column. You either have a rope attached to a cage on your trap, or we have rope attached to a cage that sits on the sea floor or seabed. Everything's kept through the water column and off the surface, so basically there's no way that the whales can interact. We don't want to catch these whales, we don't want our gear to be dragged up the coast, we don't want to see the floats on the traps, and we don't want all these things that are happening, but we're trying to do what we can to stop it. If the issue becomes such a big thing that they start saying, well, we've got to close the fishery down for 2 or 3 months, like this time of the year is one of our busiest times or most productive times for fish trapping. Say for instance we couldn't trap this time of the year, that would cost us a lot. So by doing these sort of things, trialling this sort of work, hopefully we can stay away from that sort of thing happening. While you know that what you're trying isn't going to be the perfect solution, but until you actually start doing it, get some results, get some trials, compare it with other fishermen doing the similar sort of thing, so you can bounce ideas off them and you develop it and refine it, and then hopefully someday, somewhere in the future, we'll have a system that is good for the fishermen, good for the industry, and good for the whales.